Okay, so we had a great time with Trevor. We are going to move on to Vacant Land, and then which is National Home Buyers Investors Group, and then we're going to move on to the Personal Power Project, solar, backup batteries, all that kind of good stuff. But we're going to do a little segue here because we've got Dustin, who's into serious marketing with the different multiple businesses that he's working with in town. So I just wanted to show him something here real quick. This up here is something called Go High Level. Now, have you been to our website, the Santa Barbara Real Estate Investor Association?
I believe I have.
Okay, let me just show you something real quick on that. If you come to, and all you have to do is type in sbreia.com, and it expands to the domain Santa Barbara reia.com. Okay, so when you go to the front page, you'll see this information, and it talks about this meeting. You just click right there at the bottom of that. It takes you to this page, which is the event room we're in right now. Okay, down below, as you scroll down, there is something that says schedule for the day, and then slide presentation. Okay, so you click on slide presentation. Okay, and then it gets to that. You can bring that up. And then that first one had to do with all the AI stuff in marketing. So we're right back here. I just wanted to show you how to get there. Okay? So once you're there, you go to this thing called Go High Level Conversation AI. Okay?
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure really.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you look at the reviews that different people talk about that have used this product and have been doing marketing as a business, they said, well, yeah, we're kind of great that AI has come out with all these different things, but as it's new and it's just kind of moving on, and let me close this over here. As it's moving on, what they're finding is that they have to use 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different types of programs to be able to do their marketing, okay? Where this has all that stuff they're talking about in one package. Everything you need in one package.
Wow.
And it will do major, major marketing for you and do all that AI stuff too. And if you scroll down their website, and you see, here's an example of, let's see if we can get to it, we'll get to it. The different, okay, now here's an example of what they're saying are the different companies, the different programs, the different things that you probably have seen and are familiar with, and what they cost per month, and what high level includes in their package, which all these things are separate programs, but it's all included in their package. And you keep scrolling down, and then let me get away from this for a moment. Once you get down to the bottom, there's $1,600 per month worth of tools to use, where if you were to just use this high-level conversation AI marketing, it's It's $97 per month.
Wow.
That's big, big difference. And you, probably being into marketing, would say, well, okay, I could do that just for my business and I could market my business, but if I want to do this for other people, I could have for $297 per month unlimited accounts, and I could say, hey, would you like me to do your marketing? Would you like me to do your marketing? How about your marketing? You could be doing this as a business with a full integrated package that does all this stuff.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think from what I heard you say earlier, that's really,
My wheels are spinning.
your wheels are spinning. Okay? And so that's all I'm going to do, because we did a whole thing on AI in the beginning of the day, and you can go back and watch that video. But easier than watching the video is just go to the website, work your way down just like I did, click on the different links, and it's going to take you to all this information. without having to try to figure out, well, how do I get back to that?
Yeah,
Okay, because I set all that stuff up,
thank you.
and that's what I set it up in. And just so you get a quick little idea,
Hello from Dava. We have a Realty 411 and SBREIA meeting scheduled for February 28th at Cody's Cafe. We are bringing in multiple speakers to cover 1031 exchange, avoiding probate.
so that just gives you an idea. And that I'm showing you had nothing to do with that program, but that program can generate that kind of stuff along with everything else. Emails, marketing, you name it, all that. So it's really pretty good. Okay, so we're going to get out of that.
Dan, did you use crop for that? Crop?
No, that's something called HiGen. I don't know if you've heard of HiGen, but that's one of the programs that earlier in the day when Julie McCoy was talking about these different programs, you know, she mentions HiGen, and I went out and looked at that and generated this just from a picture. Basically, that's my eyes, my nose, my mouth, not the buff body, not the buff hair. Okay, but that's how you can do that kind of stuff. And it's not that, you know, that AI is going to make all the difference in your business, but it's just another tool that you can use in your business
Sure.
along with everything else. Okay, so we're going to get out of that. But this is the ticket here that you're going to want to dig into deep, especially if you want to do it for other people.
Yeah.
Okay? And let's see if I can get out of that. We'll get out of that, and that, and that, and that, and that. And we'll just get back here and grab my little clicker here. Okay. Okay. There we go. And, okay. So, we're going to move on here. I think I pulled that out. There we go. And that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get on to NHBIG Inc., which stands for National Home Buyers Investors Group. Basically, it's a way that you can, as an investor, join us on different types of investments, or find some properties. If you want to just be an owner-occupant, buy some land, get in there, you can do that too, or be a joint venture investor. Okay, so let's go over to NHBIG Land. And just to give you an idea, you can be an owner-occupant, buy and sell the land. We're not realtors, it's just a lifestyle choice, so there's never a commission for the buying and selling of the land. And typical, there's a gentleman that came and spoke back in 2010 at our RIA at a different location, Jack Bosch, and he was the one who kind of introduced me to vacant land back then. And of course back then I thought, oh, I just want to get some rental properties, and you know, I don't want to have to go down to the county recorder, look at microfinch or whatever the stuff was, and it just sounds like a lot of traveling, and I don't know. And it was back then much more difficult. Now that time has gone on and it's all computerized, it couldn't be any easier to do this business. And I'm going to show you a little bit of him as we get farther along. But basically, in his business, he says, we don't do anything for less than $30,000, and we go up into the millions on vacant land, okay? And I thought, well, for me to get joint ventures in the beginning, it's gonna be hard to, make that jump and have people come in with that much money. So I decided to start at anything from $5,000 to $10,000 on a purchase, and you can easily at that point double or triple that purchase amount and sell it for $25,000 to $50,000, depending on what price you actually purchased the property for, and then create owner financing. Okay, so what I do is I have a joint venture investor come in and say, okay, Dan, I'm going to give you, we'll go up to $10,000, find me a property. I don't want to deal with any of it. I'm just way too busy to deal with it. I don't want the computing. I don't want to try to figure out any of this stuff. I just want the return on investment. And so we go out at 5% and say, hey, do you want some property to occupy, not as a joint investor, but just as an owner occupant? This is going to be $1,000 down. This is going to be 5% per year on the interest rate. And where can you get a 5% interest rate today? Anybody know? From a private owner, from private owner financing, because we can make up whatever percent we want. And, you're going to pay maybe $300, $400, $500 a month for 2.5 acres to 5 acres, depending on what the property is. Well, that's a pretty sweet deal, okay? Wouldn't you say, price-wise? Pretty easy to get into at $1,000 down, 5% interest, and there's no credit checks. We don't care what the credit is as long as you can make the payments. Now, yes, then please do ask the questions, because that's the important part.
Do you guys require proof of funds?
No proof of funds. This is so easy. But I found out recently it's less easy in California than it is in New Mexico. Okay?
Or just about anywhere else?
Or just about anywhere else. And let me show you. Let me come back over here. And let's go over to the joint venture part of it. Okay, so now we're looking at the joint venture part of it. And these numbers, when you look at them, you're going to go, that's crazy, Dan. You're not going to get 900% interest. You're not going to get, all these things that you're saying on this page here. That's just way too high, way too much. And I went out to Brock and I asked, okay, so what if you were to just do, say, rental properties, fix and flip, stock market, what would your return on investment be? And it said 10% to 12% per year. And then I asked Brock, okay, well, what if you were to purchase a property for $5,000 and sell it for $50,000? What would your return on investment be? Well, it started looking like that. Selling for $50,000 is pretty unlikely. You'd have to get a really low price and a really good property that particular type of property is probably selling for $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, comparatively speaking, to be able to lower the price, get $50,000, and end up with that kind of an interest rate. I mean, a return on investment. But it's not so unlikely to get a property for $5,000 and sell it for $25,000 and make, something less than that. If you were to do it yourself, you might get 450% interest. If you were to split it with us as a joint venture, you might get 250% interest ROI over a 5-year period. That's still better than 10 or 12%. That's a lot of, coulda, shoulda, woulda, who knows what you're going to get. The thing is, if you were to do this, you have to understand that depending on the deal, it could sell in a month or it could take 6 months. During that period of time, you're not making mortgage payments. It's already paid for. You purchased it for $5,000. There's no expenses. There's nobody there saying, hey, you got to have taxes, you got to have insurance. We do pay the taxes. There's really no insurance. There's so little that you have to do with vacant land that until you get a buyer, it's not a big deal. Once you get a buyer and you start splitting up that income, then you've got it for about 5 years. I sold 30 acres in New Mexico, about a year back or so. Let's go over here to California. I'm going to tell you the difference between California and Nevada, or New Mexico. Here's 5 acres out in Lancaster, okay? And it's close to Antelope Valley. It's just, 10 miles away. Lancaster, if you know anything about Lancaster, you look at that and go, I've never seen Lancaster like this. That's not Lancaster.
Too much color.
But guess what? There's a period of time when it rains out there for about maybe 1 month.
Isn't this in April?
What's that?
Isn't this in April? When,
Could be.
yeah.
Yeah, you
When the
know.
poppies bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they have a big
during
poppy.
COVID, I took my kid, everyone was going stir crazy, so I grabbed my kids and went out. It was beautiful,
Yeah.
breathtaking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I tell people, well, the property is only, a few miles from that. And I always thought, Lancaster, you kidding me? You couldn't pay me to go there, to live there, or do anything there. And then I see this and I go, well, there's a point in time where it looks kind of nice, This is $28,000, purchased for about $5,000. And here's some comparables. Well, the $28,000 is the property we're selling. Me and my joint venture investor who is doing absolutely nothing. And he shouldn't do anything because he's paid for it all. And how I do the 50-50 is, okay, if it's 50-50, and let's say we get $400 a month, well, he's going to get 100 of that right off the bat to start paying down his original investment. And then he's going to get another 150, because that would leave us 300. Then we split the 300, I get 150, he gets 150. But he gets that other 100 to help pay down the property, so that in the 5-year period, by the time we're done, it's paid off. Okay? So it's kind of a 60-40 split from that standpoint. Do you see where I'm going with that? Okay? And if you look at some comparable properties, there's one that sold for $27,000. These are ones that are sold. You can go look at, click on the Redfin link. Redfin link, okay? It's a little bit less acreage, and there's the coordinates to it, and you can go right to Redfin to see it, but no owner financing. All of these are no owner financing except for the one on the top, which is ours, and that's owner financing, and you get in real easy. Why do we not need proof of funds? Why do we not need much up front? Why do we not care about people's credits and all that kind of
It
stuff?
doesn't matter if they don't pay you, you just sell it again.
Well, that's true, but here's the difference between California and New Mexico that I just found out. I started going into, and I've got a buyer for this already. I've had a lot of people come up and say, oh, I'm living in my car and I'm getting kicked out, I need, when I went from rental properties to vacant land properties, my dream was, young people that see the future, that they can see the path for creating their dream, and go for something like this and be a little more remote, because now you can work remote. You don't have to be right in the city. But I worked with AI, and AI said, whatever you do, stay about 5 miles out of the city, so you're in the county, but don't go more than 30 miles, because if you go more than 30 miles, most people aren't going to want to drive that far. That's too far. And on top of it, if you want to live here for free, and you want to rent out RV, containers, trailer spaces, you could actually get into this as an owner-occupant, buy it, and put that stuff on there real quick and start living there for free because you're generating that income. But here's the difference. California, as we went into the escrow, what happened, let me see if I can get out of this. Where is it? Okay. All right, get out of that. Get out of that. There we go. As I got into escrow, I gave the escrow agent my purchase agreement and all the information, and I said, as soon as we're sure that we can work with this the way I say, which is they're going to make the payments, but they're not going to get the deed until they make their last payment. and it's gonna be owner finance, 5%, blah, blah, blah. She was kind of hemming and hawing, yeah, okay, and trying to get this guy to come in with his cash down and not answering my questions. And finally, I thought, I gotta quit texting and emailing and get her on the phone. And finally, once I got her on the phone, she goes, oh no, we're not gonna do some kind of contract for land, and they don't get the deed. They get the deed right off the bat. And I said, well, if they don't pay, that's going to be a problem. She goes, no, it's not. You just, you go to foreclosure, you just foreclose on them. It's not a big deal. I said, okay, we need to hold on this conversation. Don't talk to the buyer. You and I need to talk more on the phone. Let's quit texting and emailing, and let me go dig into this a little bit more. I sold 30 acres in New Mexico, almost a year ago, and when I sold it to these couple guys bought it, I went to the escrow company in New Mexico, and I said, now what about the deed? Do I give them the deed up front, and they make payments on this owner financing, or do I give them the deed once they make their last payment? And she said, oh no, we never give the people the deed. They don't get the deed till they make the last payment. Okay, that's a contract for land part of New Mexico, not California. So I went back to AI and I said, okay, AI, if I do this in California, and it sounds like you're kind of late going down the road with all this stuff, Dan. Don't you know this before you get this deed? No, sometimes you gotta wing it. AI said, no, you have to officially foreclose, and you can't really be doing a land contract or contract for deed like you do in New Mexico. And I said, that's California law? And I said, pretty much. You could try to push that. You'd have to find an escrow agent, a title company that would do it. Pretty unlikely, but you need to go to giving them the deed and do a foreclosure if they don't pay, if they fail to pay. And I said, okay, so tell me, what's the cost in all that? If you don't know the question to ask, you're screwed. You've got to know the questions to ask. And if you don't, because it's AI and you're not paying for consulting, you can ask all day long and all night long until you finally hit the right thing. It came back and gave me a list of all these pros and cons and costs. And the first thing it said is, when you go to foreclosure, you have to go to auction on the property. And it has to be auctioned off at a foreclosure site in California. And whoever buys it, if they pay more than you're willing to pay, whatever that difference is, if it's $2 or if it's $1 million, that money goes to the buyer, not the seller. And I'm like, what? This is New Mexico. This is California. This is really bad. The last thing you want to do in California is do what I'm trying to do in New Mexico. You can't do it really in California. So then I got back to AI and I said, okay, what about if instead of doing the owner financing, I do a lease to own, lease to purchase, okay? And I said, yeah, that's what you want to do in California. You do not want to go and give them the deed. And if you have to take the property back because they're not paying for it, then you can just go through the eviction process and not the foreclosure process. Well, the eviction process is much easier because you're not going to go to auction and do all that crap, right? So I said, okay, that's sounding better. I could do that. Now, what about these financial parameters? Because some of these people say, well, if I'm paying $400 a month, I want $200 or $300 of that to go toward my down payment on the purchase of this property. AI came back and said, you do not want to go down that road. You have to do 25%, meaning if it's $400 a month, only $100 is going to go toward the purchase. And you don't want to get these huge deposits because it's a mathematical equation that once you get over a certain amount of money coming in for this property, and if there's a problem and they don't pay and you're trying to evict them, they get to go to court, and the court of California is going to say, that's not a lease to purchase, that's not a rent to own. This basically, financially, as we can see it, is an owner finance loan. now you have to go to auction. You gotta be really careful what you're doing in California. And you gotta be asking your questions. And so I've had people come back and say, I wanna pay more, I wanna pay more. You can't, we won't let you. And the nice thing about having a joint venture partner is my joint venture partner won't approve it. I get to be the good guy, he's the bad guy. But guess what? He doesn't even know. He doesn't want to deal with it. It's too much information. Dan, just make it work. So, you know, I make sure that I'm saying all the things I need to know through AI that's, you know, instructing me and pushing me, following, you know, that I can move forward with. And then I just tell them, this is how we're going to have to do the deal if you want to do it or not. One of the ways I get them to do it is by saying, if you do this, I will continue helping you place tenants so that you can live there for free. And until you actually sign a lease-to-own agreement, which is, I've already got a person that's renting, paid his first month's rent. Guess how much his first month's rent was? $75. I'm renting that space, like dividing up little spaces, not physically, but just on a map, so that people can rent. And out of those rentals, what happens is $25 per week or $75 per month. If you get 3 people on there renting, and they all start looking at each other going, no, wait a minute. You're renting here now? Yeah. You're renting here now? Yeah. You mean, if I don't hurry up and get in there with that contract and get on that lease to own purchase, you're going to go on the lease to purchase before me? Yeah. That creates the competition you need for somebody to get out their butt and actually get moving and do something about getting that whole property moving forward and getting it sold, you know, over that period of time. So that's kind of what's happening right now with this property in Lancaster. And the dream, again, was to get somebody young to see that, or to get somebody older to see it and go, well, I'm retiring, that's my dream, I want to get into that. But what's happening in California is they're cracking down on the law so much, so hard, so fast, that if they catch you out in your van sleeping on the side of the road, or an RV, or a trailer, or whatever, they're going to impound your vehicle. If it's worth less than $4,000 by law, what they get to do is crush it up and make you homeless. I forgot, one of the other caveats of this whole thing of the leasing and foreclosure is, it was renting these things out. They have a law that says you just can't stack people on this property or these properties in California. California, not just Lancaster, California. You just can't keep stacking them on there because we have drones now. And we're going to go over your property, we're going to see if you're doing things that are illegal, and if we catch you and you don't remove that container, that trailer, that whatever, until you get a permit to build, until you've actually put in a well, and then we go to the next step, we're going to start fining you, and we're going to start making your first fine $1,000, and we're going to keep increasing that, and our limit is $100,000. Imagine buying a property for $5,000 and then end up with a fine from the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, for $100,000 because you've got a trailer on there that's not supposed to be there. And all you have to do is get on Google Maps and look at these properties, and there's nothing but trailers. There's nothing but containers. There's nothing but all that stuff going out in these places. And if you go out and talk to people who live there, yeah, we know the story. But guess what? We're in the county, and we're not knocking out their door saying, can I have this? Can I have that? We don't even want them to know we're here. And they may say they fly over, we don't know, but they're not bothering us. And as long as they're not bothering us, we're just doing what we want to do. I'm not saying to go out there and do that. I'm just telling you how this game is lined up. And so when I realized that, I said, okay, we're gonna get rid of this property, and we probably won't do any more vacant land in California because everybody's trying to get out of California anyway, until legislation changes, government rules change, and who knows when that will be. Okay, so let's come over here and take a quick look at New Mexico. Well, before we do, let's go back and just take a look. I want you to see how this thing is advertised, because it shows you the land. It's right next to a paved road within like a block or two.